Hello guys, welcome back. I am Lelu. In this video we will create a smoke effect, and it can be even used as a fire, and also if you want to create a dust effect or a poison effect, this is the tutorial for you. A smoke can be created in two main styles. We have a realistic smoke and a stylized smoke. In this tutorial we will focus on crafting realistic smokes effects only. But I will also upload a tutorial about stylized smokes effects in Godot pretty soon. There are three basic ways to create a realistic smoke effect, and in this video I will show you all of these three techniques. All of these methods has its advantages and disadvantages. First, we will create a smoke using a special flipbook texture. Then I will show you the second way to create a smoke, which is much more simple and minimalistic. And then I will show you my favorite method to create smokes. And for this one we will control the level of details of the textures using some special techniques and tricks. Here you can see the three final results. Each one of these smokes are done in a completely different way. But in case you don't want to see the entire video, I have divided this video into three parts, so you can just skip the method you don't want to see. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this. So here we are in Godot, and as always for this tutorial we will need to use some textures. This time we will use one texture for each different type of smoke. We will start using this special flipbook texture for the first smoke. Then for the second smoke we will use this simple texture. It's just a cloudy smoke texture. And finally, for the final type of smoke, I will use this noise texture in combination with this circle mask. And in case you want to follow this tutorial along, all these textures are available for free. The link is in the description of this video. For now, I want you to focus on this special smoke flipbook texture. And this is a very special texture because, as you can see, this texture is divided into 64 parts. It's an 8 by 8 texture. What makes this texture special is the fact that the animation and the motion of the smoke is already baked into the texture. Let me show you. I will close this and I will open this program over here just to show you something very quick. And as you can see here at the right is the smoke image, and the texture is divided into 64 grid. And as you can see, as I move from the left to the right and from the top to the bottom, you can see how the smoke is being animated. And this is amazing because we already have all the animation, all the motion baked into the texture. For now, I don't want to dive too much into details about how this texture is done, because that will be out of the scope of this video. But basically what I have done is that I have created a smoke simulation using a program like Embergen, or you can use Blender as well. And then I have recorded a video of that smoke with a transparent background. So I divided that video into 64 frames and merge all these into one big texture. And once again, in this video I don't want to dive too much into details about how that is done, but let me know in the comments if you want me to make a special video about flipbook textures. So anyways, let's close this and let's go back to Godot, and I will import all these textures into my project. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I want to create a GPU particle system. Let's name this VFX Smoke 1. And as always, in order for these particles to work, we need to create a particle process material and assign a mesh. This time I will choose a quad mesh. And now we have a lot of quad meshes falling down. This is because of the gravity. So let's go to particle process material. Let's go to accelerations and set the gravity to 0. Also, just for now, I want to have one particle, only one particle. so I can see if my flipbook texture works. Okay, so let's go to geometry and create a standard material. And here I can select my flipbook texture. Okay. Also, I want this texture to be transparent, so let's go to transparency and set this to alpha. Right. Now I want to go to billboard and set this to particle billboard. So this way the quad mesh, the plane, is always facing the camera. And also we have this particles animation section, and here we can set the number of columns and rows of this texture. This texture have 8 columns and 8 rows. And okay, as you can see, nothing happens because we need to specify we want this texture to be animated into the particle system. So let's go to the particle process material once again, and let's go to display, and let's go to this animation section. So here we can set the speed of the animated texture. I will set a speed of 1. Great, the flipbook is working and it's looking nice, but it looks too dark. And here we have a problem because as this texture is a plane which is always facing the camera, it means that if we rotate the camera into the direction of the sunlight, the light hits the plane and it looks more bright when it's looking at the sun direction. So for example, if I go to my sunlight over here and I start moving this, you can see how now it looks more brighter. And one way to solve this problem is by setting this material to unshaded, so it's always looking bright. But probably this is not a good idea for a realistic smoke, because imagine if you are, for example, in a cave when everything is darker, so you probably don't want to see a bright smoke in that cave. So I prefer to disable this unshaded option, especially in this realistic smoke kind of VFX. I will show you another way to solve this problem later on in the video, so don't worry. But for now, let's try to figure out the motion of this smoke effect. So I will go to spawn, position, and I want this smoke to spawn into a sphere position with a radius of 0.1. And also let's go to particle flags and enable rotate Y. So I can give this an angle, a random angle between -180 and 180. So this gives some variation to our smoke effect. Now let's go to the amount and set an amount of 20. And let's set a lifetime of 2 seconds. And I will set the FPS to 60 FPS. Now let's go to velocity. And I want to set a velocity into the y-axis with a random value between 1.8 and 2.3. Now let's go to animated velocity, angular velocity, and I want to give this a random angular velocity between -50 and 50. Right, so now let's go to display. I want this smoke effect to have a random scale between 0.9 and 2.2. Also, if you want, you can give a nice color to this smoke effect. So if I go and pick, oh, it's not working. Oh, okay, we need to go to the material and go to vertex color and enable these two options. So now we can set a color here into the particle system. You can set a global color over here, or you can set a color ramp where you can control the color over the lifetime of the smoke. In this case, I will use a trick to solve the light problem, and I will increase the color intensity, and I want to really push this value a little bit more over 1, so the smoke starts to bright while it's also affected by the environment light. And also I can overlap this color with a color ramp, so let's create a new gradient texture 2D and enable HDRI so we can set really intense colors. And as you can see, the smoke goes from black to white. And I can also invert this so I can get this amazing effect. And I can even add some nice colors. Let's add some colors here. So for example, I will add a blue color over here, like so. I will manually input these raw values so I can get intense color values. Maybe I can change this black color to something like more bluish. Okay, this is crazy. You can set any kind of smoke color variation, and I love this one because this way it looks like a fantasy, mysterious, spectral smoke. So that's basically it for the smoke. There is one more thing I want to mention. I will enable this floor just to show you something. And I want to disable this icon. This is annoying, so I will go to this menu and disable gizmos. So I just want to show you that if I move this smoke over here, you can see how this smoke is overlapping the floor in a really ugly, hard edge way. So you probably don't want this. One way to fix this is to go to the material. Let's go to proximity fade and enable proximity fade. So now the smoke will fade when it's closer to an object. Just in case you don't want to get this weird hard edge artifact, this is one way to solve it. I don't recommend to do this on low-end devices because proximity fades can be quite expensive if you have a lot of articles. But for now, for this smoke, I think it's okay. There's no problem. Great, so we have created a smoke effect using a flipbook. Now I will show you a much more simple way to do it using just a single texture. Okay, that's it for the smoke one. Now let's see the second way to create a smoke effect. I will move this over here and I want to duplicate this. And because this is a new smoke, we need to go to the particle process material, right click and make unique recursive. And also let's go to geometry, to the material, right click and make unique. Yes, just to make sure that the first smoke is not affected by the changes. I will hide this and I will go to my particle process material, to the color. I will reset all these color values. I will go to the material, to albedo, and I will delete this flipbook texture. This time we will use this single texture. So I will put this over here. It looks messy because we need to disable the animated particle. So let's set these columns and rows to 1. Also let's go to the particle and also disable this animation speed. We don't need this anymore. Great. I think this texture is too big, so let's go to scale and let's reset the scale. I will set a random value between 1 and 1.3. Also, I want to go ahead and create a curve to control the scale. And let's put a max value of 2. So I want these particles to start quite small and then go big, but let's adjust this curve a bit so it looks similar to the previous smoke. Yes, something like this. It's okay. And as you can see, the smoke texture is disappearing suddenly. So we need to go to the color curves, and let's create an alpha curve. So I want this texture to start transparent and then go full opaque. And then once again, at the end, I want this to go transparent. And that's basically it. This was fast. And as you can see, it looks very similar to the first result. Oh, let me actually reset the colors of this smoke. So here you can compare both results. The flipbook texture is a quite more heavy in terms of memory because we are using a high resolution texture. But using a single texture is lightweight and straightforward. It works well for static or minimalistic animated smoke effects. The downside is that it may lack the dynamic, realistic movement that flipbooks or shaders can provide. So that's something to take in mind. Okay, so we have seen two ways to create the smokes. First, we have created a smoke using a flipbook. Then we have created a smoke using a single texture. And now I will show you my third and favorite method, which is using the level of details of a texture. We will use some tricks in Godot to do that. And this also works great for dust effects as well. I will go ahead and duplicate this smoke. And because this is a new smoke, I want to go ahead and right click and make this unique. And also for this smoke, I will not use a standard material. So let's delete this. Instead, I want to go ahead and create a shader material and create a new shader. I will choose a visual shader and let's name this guy shader smoke L.O.D. Create. And let's double click to open the shader. This will be a very, very simple shader. I will grab a texture. I will pick this noise texture and set it to color. And because this is a black and white texture, we don't need to use all the colors of this texture. We only need to use the red channel. So I will connect this texture to the alpha transparency. And you can see we get these multiple textures. But the trick is I will use the level of details of this texture to make this texture like blur, to like disappear. And the way I will do that is by controlling this level of details. So I will show you. For example, I will create a float constant and connect it into the level of details of the texture. As you can see, if it's 0, nothing really changes. But if I put a value, for example, of 5, you can see how the texture now looks like low resolution texture. It's actually easy to see that if I connect the texture to the color instead of the transparency. You can see how the texture looks blurry and ugly. And this means as we go down, we go up into the level of details, we can get the full resolution of the texture. And as we go into a lower value, for example, 8, you can see how the texture looks really ugly because the resolution of the texture is 8 times lower than the original texture. So The trick is I want to control this number to go from 0 to 8 over the time of the particle. And the way I will do this is, instead of using one single value, let's delete this. I will go ahead and get the color of the particles, and I want to remap this value. So the color originally goes from 0 to 1, from black to white, and I will make this go from 0 to 8 to control the level of detail. And now if I go to the particle process material, into colors, I will create a color ramp. So this will go from a value of 0 to a value of 1. And as you can see, the texture is now like, it looks like it's fading out, but this is just a trick that is lowering the resolution of the texture over the time to get this nice effect. Okay, let's connect this to the transparency instead. And now let's solve some artifacts we have here. For example, we can see the corners of the texture. In order to solve that, I will grab my circle mask over here, and I will multiply this noise texture with the circle texture, so we don't see the corners anymore. But now it looks too small, so we need to adjust the scale. Let's go to the particle scale, and let's put a random value between 3 and 3.5. Also, I want these particles to be always facing the camera. So let's go to vertex, and I will right click and create a billboard matrix, set it to particles. Okay, this is looking nice. I also want this smoke to fade out a little bit more. So let's go back to the fragment section of the shader. And I will go ahead and get the alpha of my particle system. And I will, you know what, let's duplicate this. And let's multiply the transparency alpha value of the particle system with my final result. So now I can make the smoke fade out a little bit more using this curve if I want. Great. The problem with this is we cannot assign a color over here, because we are already using the color to control this value. So I will need to create a new color for this particle. Right click and create a color parameter. And let's name it smoke color. So now I can go to my new shader material, and here in shader parameters I can set the color for this smoke. So that's basically it, guys. We have created a smoke effect in 3 different ways. By the way, in case you want to support me and also get access to all of these effects and many more, they are all available on my Patreon's page. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching. See you.